Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather Tesco, and I have been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009. This channel is where I put all of my old episodes from all of the different shows I do, as well as loads of extra content like this video right here. So I sound a little bit weird today because I'm getting over being sick, but look, I have a big bag of cough drops right here. So if I need to take a break and cough a little bit, I can edit that out. The other thing on my desk that I want to share with you, because it's cool, is my daughter's been getting into origami, and she made these very pretty little paper cranes for me to have. Very tiny. Look how tiny they are. There's also a big one. She started with big ones, and then so I've got 4 paper cranes on my desk. Got a very messy desk. There's also a bunch of lip glosses. One time I shared on Instagram a picture of what my desk looks like compared to my husband, Jonathan's. He's very neat. I am very not. I do try to clean it once a week, but it is what it is. Anyway, hi. That was a long introduction, and I'm sure somebody's going to leave me a comment saying, why do you have such a long introduction? Why don't you get right to the Tudor stuff? To which I have an answer called use the fast forward button. It's really easy. People will leave comments about anything, they really will. Okay. So today we're going to also, I've been sick, right? So cut me some slack. Today we are talking about Wyatt's rebellion, and specifically Wyatt's rebellion from the perspective of Elizabeth I. I got to get my glasses on so I can read my notes. I was not prepared. Clearly, got my glasses on my desk. I got my Kleenexes on my desk. All right. Wyatt's rebellion. We're going to get through it, you guys. You and me, we're here together. We're in it together. Oh, yeah. Okay. So the mid-16th century was a tumultuous era for England, marred by religious schisms, political intrigues, and the specter of foreign influence. As Catholic Mary I ascended to the throne, the nation's Protestants grappled with very deep-seated fears. Mary's religious convictions were no secret, as she fervently sought to reverse England's Protestant course initiated by her father. Her decision to wed Philip II of Spain only intensified anxieties of the populace. The perspective was not that it was just a romantic move. Of course, Mary being queen meant that they would have a Spanish king then, because the idea of a woman reigning on her own with a prince consort or, somebody below her who wasn't actually the king, women had to obey their husbands, right? So if you marry somebody from Spain, that means he's now ruling England. Many English subjects, especially Protestants, feared the looming specter of Spanish dominance, which might bolster Catholic resurgence and jeopardize England's political autonomy. They were also afraid of the Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Enter Sir Thomas Wyatt, a charismatic figure, as rebellious leaders usually are, from Kent, and he stirred these fears. In early 1554, he led a revolt with clear intent to dethrone Mary I and, in the process, prevent her marriage to Philip. But Wyatt was not a lone voice of dissent. His rebellion drew support from a wide range of Protestants, many of whom felt disenfranchised by Mary's policies and feared the consequences of her Spanish marriage. They envisioned a Protestant England, a continuation of what Edward VI had started and what Henry had started, and then Edward VI continued. They wanted to build on that. And for many people, of course, Princess Elizabeth was that hope, and a figure of suspicion for Mary's Catholic regime. As Wyatt's rebellion unfurled, Elizabeth found herself ensnared in a web of rumors and speculation. Did she have a role in the uprising? Was she a puppet behind the scenes or merely an unsuspecting pawn? In this volatile climate, even more suspicion could be damning. Elizabeth was arrested and subjected to rigorous questioning. Throughout her ordeal, she vehemently denied any involvement. She wanted to distance herself from the rebellion, and her letters from the period reflect a mix of anxiety, frustration, and determination revealing a young woman keenly aware of the stakes, yet resolute in defending her integrity and her innocence. Amid the backdrop of this, also, we need to keep in mind is Lady Jane Grey, who is still alive in the tower. Of course, Jane was the 9 days queen who, after Edward VI died, he had tried to make her his heir, and she was kind of thrust into the limelight, proclaimed queen by the powerful Protestant factions who wanted to prevent Mary from becoming queen. However, Mary was able to consolidate power quickly, and that led to Jane's downfall. Jane is still alive at this point. Mary didn't want to kill her right away. She was keeping her in the tower for safekeeping and to prevent her from being a figurehead for a rebellion, which, of course, is partially what had happened. So the Dudley family, who is her in laws, had been instrumental in placing Jane on the throne, and they became involved in Wyatt's rebellion. Henry Grey, Duke of Suffolk, and Jane's father joined Wyatt. Jane's father, his daughter is in the tower, and yet he's joining Wyatt's rebellion, which further complicated the dynamics. Their involvement highlighted not only the desperate attempts to which the Protestant nobility were willing to go, but also underscored the precariousness of Elizabeth's position as royal bloodlines and religious alliances interwove in a dangerous dance of power and ambition. So imagine if it would have succeeded. Would Dudley have tried to put Jane back on the throne then? It's a history's what if, right? That would be a fun. Somebody should write a book like that of like Wyatt's rebellion succeeding and putting Jane Grey back on the throne, like an alternative history. I would read that book. So if you want to write that book, you'll have at least one person buy it. It'll be me and other people. I'm sure other people would buy it because it'd be interesting. So, Elizabeth's in the tower. The atmosphere surrounding the Tower of London was laden with tragic memories for Elizabeth. This is where it gets really sad and really, I, it makes me cry. So, she was in the same place that her mother had been before she was executed. Elizabeth was kept in the bell tower, which was fraught with symbolism. It was the very place that her mother was confined before her execution. The weight of this must have been unbearable. Can you even imagine? I cannot even imagine. She was acutely aware of the parallel and would have known the serious implications of her imprisonment. And I have to say, I try to cut Mary some slack. I don't go in for this whole Bloody Mary thing at all. I try to see Mary's side of the story. You know, she had a horrible time with her mother, and what happened to her and her mother is it's just all hurt people, right? That's what they say. So I try to cut Mary some slack. But I gotta say, this move of imprisoning her in the same tower her mother was imprisoned in, after everything that they went through together, there had been actual sisterly affection between the two of them. Like, that is just so 1000% not cool, Mary. Not cool at all. So, who was with Elizabeth at the time was her governess, Kat Ashley, who was, her very close confidant. She was actually not with her. She had also been arrested and was questioned about Elizabeth's role in Wyatt's rebellion. She endured the interrogations and she offered no substantial evidence against Elizabeth. By the time Elizabeth was imprisoned, Kat was already under house arrest, and so she couldn't be with her. One interesting thing that comes up during this period, too, is whether or not Elizabeth hung out with Robert Dudley, met up with Robert Dudley while they were together, because they were both in the tower at the same time. And it was common for the person who was the head of the tower to have dinners with the noble people coming to his rooms, to his table. It was just kind of a common thing that was done to treat the noble guests somewhat differently. So it's possible and conceivable that Elizabeth and Robert bonded during their time in the tower together while they were there, though there's no concrete evidence that they met while they were there. And of course, Robert was in prison because he was a Dudley, and the Dudleys were, kind of leading this whole thing. So their shared experience of imprisonment and the treacherous political landscape would be a bond that was between them forever. The bleakness of Elizabeth's situation during her time in the tower cannot be understated. She maintained a facade of resilience, but she must have been haunted by the legacy of her mother's fate. Maybe she felt her mother's presence there with her in the same place. It would have just cast a very long shadow over her time. Like, being in the tower is bad enough, but then you got to be there. Elizabeth's release from the Tower was not spontaneous. It was calculated, influenced by a lack of concrete evidence linking Elizabeth directly to Wyatt's rebellion. Many of Mary's advisors, including the Spanish ambassador, wanted to see Elizabeth executed. They thought it would stabilize Mary's reign. However, public sentiment was a significant factor. The English populace, particularly the Protestants, held Elizabeth in high esteem, and if Mary had executed her, it probably would have led to a much larger rebellion. So Elizabeth was freed in May of 1554, but she was not fully restored to her freedom. She was placed under house arrest. It was sort of a gilded cage situation. She had relative comfort, but she was very closely monitored, and her correspondence and her visitors were screened. Her relationship with Mary was very complex. They had blood ties when they were younger. They were both very close. There's a lot of evidence that Mary had cared for Elizabeth, almost like a daughter. Of course, Mary was in her late teens when Elizabeth was born, so she was old enough to be Elizabeth's mother. And when Elizabeth lost her mother so young, Mary really cared for her, and they had been very close. And it's very sad that their religious differences and Elizabeth's claim to the throne always stood between them once Mary was queen. However, there were periods of seeming reconciliation. There's one letter after Wyatt's rebellion that stands out, showing this kind of strained bond that they had. Mary wrote to Elizabeth in October 1555, reminding her of the responsibilities they shared due to their royal lineage, expressing her wish for them to be in good sisterly love and friendship, but also reminding Elizabeth of her need to stay within the boundaries that were set by Mary. This encapsulates their dynamic, really, a mix of sisterly affection overshadowed by the politics and veiled threats. Following Elizabeth's prolonged house arrest, Mary eventually had her sister brought back to court in 1558. This was due in part to the failing health of Mary and the clear indication that Elizabeth would soon be queen. During this period, the two sisters were observed attending Mass together, an event noted by courtiers as symbolic of their reconciled relationship. Still, behind the scenes, the tensions persisted. Mary's reign, marked as it was by political turmoil, the religious persecutions, her health, her phantom pregnancies, all of that, it took a massive toll on her health. As her health declined in 1558, the matter of her succession became undeniable. Elizabeth, ever the pragmatist, kept a low profile. Despite their tumultuous relationship, on Mary's death in November 1558, she left the throne to Elizabeth, respecting her father's line of succession. So we will leave it there for today. If you made it through this video, such as it was, and enjoyed it, I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. And hey, why not subscribe to my channel where I put out content like this a lot? It's not always I'm not always sick when I'm not always on cold medicine when I'm doing it, but it is what it is. Hey, thank you so much for watching, you guys. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you, Teresa, for your recent super thanks. I so appreciate that. Thank you, just everybody for watching. I appreciate you. This is just so much fun. I just love doing this channel. It's such a blast. All right. I will talk with you again very soon. You are deeply loved. Don't forget to drink your water and go have an amazing day. Bye.